Hello, this is Michael Novenson with Information Security Media Group. We're going to be discussing the state of software security and AI today with Chris Wysopal. He is Chief Security Evangelist at Veracode. Chris, nice to have you back in our studio.
Great to be here.
So I'm going to start you off with a big picture question here, and that is, how would you describe the state of application security as we head toward 2026?
So there is some good news. We're seeing the trends for organizations eliminating all the vulnerabilities that are in the OWASP top 10 list, which is the 10 most critical vulnerabilities, go up. Back in 2015, only 23% of organizations did that. In 2020, it rose to 32%. And today, 52% of organizations have eliminated OWASP top 10 risk. So that's the good news. The bad news is it's actually taking longer and longer for people to fix the vulnerabilities that are found in their code. Especially for financial services, it's taking an average of 272 days to fix a vulnerability. So we're seeing that as apps get bigger and more complex and development teams go faster and faster, they're actually spending less time fixing and they're just waiting a long time to fix. So that's kind of the bad news.
That's sobering stuff. So I do want to dive into these two new reports. So let's start off with the Financial Services State of Software Security report. Yeah. What, off the top here, what was the objective?
Yeah, so the objective was, what are the types of vulnerabilities are in these financial services apps? How many of those vulnerabilities are taking over a year to fix? That's what we call security debt. It's like you found it, you validated you want to fix it, and then you put it on the back burner for longer than a year. We want to kind of quantify that because we wanted to see what can be done about that, right? That seems problematic. The other thing we looked at was third-party risk. Like what risk is coming from the code the development team writes and what party is coming from open source libraries that the development team is using, because those are two very different ways of using code, which require two different ways of fixing.
Very interesting. So let's get into it. What were some of the key findings?
Yeah, so as I said, it took, I think, 273 days on average for a financial services company to fix a vulnerability in their app. That was worse than the average overall of overall sectors, I think, was 252 days. So not significantly worse, but it's interesting. You know, you think financial services, monetary risk, regulated environment, doing worse than average. When we looked at third-party risk, it turned out that overall, security debt was coming, 18% of that was coming from third-party packages, which maybe makes sense. You think, hey, it isn't the majority of the code. But then when we looked at what was the critical vulnerabilities, what were those vulnerabilities that are highs, not the medium and lows, it was around 80% was coming from open source packages. So that was a big wake-up call that organizations aren't dealing with the risk in their open source package as well.
It's very interesting. So do you feel we are seeing too much reliance on open source?
So I would never tell an organization to not use open source. It actually speeds up development, makes it less expensive to develop applications. The cost and speed more than pays for itself. But you have to manage the risk of this. To get the benefit, you have to manage the risk. So organizations really need to be testing their applications to find if there's open source risk. We also recommend them using a package firewall, which every time a developer goes to download an open source library, it will check right there and won't let them incorporate that library in because they can't download it. Those are two ways we're helping people tackle this problem.
Very interesting. So let's turn our attention to the other report you did, that Gen AI Code Security report. Two-part question for you here. First, what did you review? Second, what did you learn?
Yeah, so there'd been some academic research a couple years ago on these new AI coding assistants, which were starting to get traction. You know, GitHub Copilot, people using Claude code, and these reports came out 2 years ago, and they showed that these generative AI tools create a lot of vulnerable code, right? And not only are they creating it, they're creating it much faster, which means you have to deal with fixing a lot of issues more quickly. So we're like, this is changing AppSec, right? And so we wanted to do our own study which we did this year, to update it, because a lot of people say, well, these LLMs are getting better, right? I'm just going to assume they're getting better at writing secure code. We wanted to check, is that the case? The case is they are not. They're actually completely flat. We looked at 100 LLMs over a 2-year period. So if, say, for example, ChatGPT, we looked at version 3, version 4, version 4.5, version 5. For Claude Code, we looked at the different versions, and we looked at 100 different versions. It turns out it's relatively flat. They haven't improved. About 45% of the time, when you ask it to generate code for you, it puts a vulnerability in that code. The big downside to this is, who's going to fix that, right? You need to test faster to find it, but then you also need to fix at the speed that's being generated. And that is the issue we're trying to get across the development teams. They're using these tools. You need to put in a process where you can fix as fast as you're generating the vulnerabilities. And like most things with AI, the solution is more AI, right? We hear about like attackers using AI, so we need to use AI in the SOC. Now with coders, developers using AI to generate code, we need AI to fix code. And that's why we created Veracode Fix, to keep up with the fixing vulnerabilities at the rate of AI.
Important stuff. So wanted to put up the Wayback Machine. I know RSAC Conference 2024, you were in our studio in San Francisco, and you had said AI gives us the power to create more bad code faster. Today, would you still see things the same way?
I would see things the same way. You definitely aren't going to get organizations to not use these tools. And I'm just trying to raise awareness that you need to change your process, not to add these coding assistants into your process, but to make sure your testing can keep up, and you add fixing assistance into your process. And so I think the risk can be managed. And it's just, we got to get the message out, because I think a lot of programmers think that these tools just keep getting better and better, and they do get better at writing functional code, syntactically correct, but our report shows they have not gotten better with writing secure code.
Why is that? Why is writing secure code been such a struggle for these?
It's because there's every LLM has a corpus of knowledge it's learned from. In the case of writing code, it's learned from open source. So it's learned from good code, and it's learned from bad code. It's learned from the best open source projects, and it's learned from, a grad student's project or someone's, citizen hobby project they've done at home, right? So it's learned from well-managed projects, and it's learned from the wild, wild west. So it really hasn't learned how to write only good code. It's learned how to write vulnerable code.
It's really interesting. So now, I know we took a look at the Wayback Machine. I'm going to ask you to shake up and look at the magic 8-ball here. So fast forward a year from now, it's late 2026. What do you think are going to be the most significant AppSec concerns we're going to be dealing with?
Right. So we are using more and more open source. So you got to have a process to keep up with your team's usage of open source, because new vulnerabilities arise on a daily basis, and fixing and replacing open source packages isn't always as easy as dropping in a new file. Sometimes you have to refactor and change the code, which takes time. So plan and have a process for fixing your open source. I think that's going to get more important. Also, attackers are going after open source project teams. We're not just talking about vulnerabilities. We're talking about attackers trying to put in malicious code. So you need to be able to rapidly respond. If your developers download a package with malicious code, you need to know about that quickly to fix that. So I think that's a huge issue. And then, as I was saying with Gen AI, I think lastly, adopt a process where you can fix all the vulnerabilities that are being created by Gen AI coding tools.
Finally here, let's speak about the work you're doing at Veracode. What specifically are you doing to address some of the concerns you've raised?
Right. So the package firewall, to make sure you're not downloading packages with malicious code or new vulnerabilities in them. So use software composition analysis to look at all the packages you've pulled down. Some of these projects are 10 years old. Identify those old vulnerable packages. That's huge. And then if you're using Gen AI tools, you have to use something like Veracode Fix. You need to fix at the speed of vulnerability generation.
So important. Chris, thanks as always for the time.
Great to be here. Thank you.
You're very welcome. We've been speaking with Chris Wysopal, Chief Security Evangelist at Veracode. For Information Security Media Group, this is Michael Novenson.